There will be 3 new inductees into the Hall of Fame, Adrián Beltré being one of them. He's a former Dodger. We'll look at his career with the Dodgers and what it means for us Dodger fans to see him in the Hall of Fame. And then I'll give my 4 bold predictions for the 2024 season. That's what's on tap, so let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets when guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become an everyday, all you have to do is listen or watch every day. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio. Welcome. Usually joined by co-host Jeff Snyder, but he's out today, so it'll be just me. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team in a few ways, this podcast being one of those ways. We have been in the press box, been in the locker room. We're not quite insiders. We're just here to bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And once again, here to do that today. Not as much smart, maybe, and knowledgeable stuff. There's not really much to learn from today. Dodgers, James Paxton's deal hasn't been officially announced for the Dodgers, but it looks like it's $11 million with a $1 million bonus if he's on the opening day roster, and then up to $1 million more in incentives, I would assume, based on number of games he starts. Like I said, not official, but we got more details on that. The other news in the baseball world, Rhys Hoskins signed a 2-year deal with the Brewers. Doesn't mean much for the Dodgers other than maybe the Brewers are actually going to go for it this season, and Willy Adames and or Corbin Burns may not get traded, especially in that division. The Brewers will probably be first place or battling for first place, assuming everybody on their team stays healthy. So we might not see those two guys get traded or be available later on in the year. So Matt Moore, a potential bullpen piece, left-hander. He signed with the Angels. He pitched for the Angels last year, one of the 4 teams he pitched with last year. 1 year, $9 million. I don't think the Dodgers would have been in that price range, and they weren't really linked to him anyways. But that's kind of what happened in the baseball world. Beyond that, there were 3 players elected to be inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2024. It was Adrián Beltré, it was Joe Mauer, and it was Todd Helton. Todd Helton, we know just from playing the Rockies so many times over the course of his career, he two players that spent their careers with one team, Joe Mauer with the Twins and Todd Helton with the Rockies. So salute to them. One player started his career with the Dodgers. That's Adrián Beltré. He's talked about, his time with the Dodgers and how he appreciates it. And, he grew up here in Los Angeles. And, you obviously he's not going to have a Dodger hat on his plaque. He'll definitely go in with the Rangers hat on. But it was interesting to see how kind of close, or a lot closer than I thought, the stats were when you look him up side by side, his career with the Dodgers, his career with the Rangers. Now, if you go by accolades, they are not similar because he only won 1 Silver Slugger here with the Dodgers, finished second in MVP voting in 2004. And then with the Rangers, he was a multiple-time All-Star. He was a multiple-time Gold Glove winner, multiple-time Silver Slugger. But if you go just based on the counting stats, he spent 8 years with the Rangers, 7 years with the Dodgers, about 130 game difference more with the Rangers than with the Dodgers, about a 50 home run difference, 180 RBI difference. He did steal more bases with the Dodgers and had overall numbers, batting average, OBP, slugging percentage, OPS plus, all lower. But like I said, he started his career with the Dodgers. So His first season was as a 19-year-old in 1998. He played in 77 games that year, and then just progressively was the team's third baseman for the next few years until his breakout season in 2004. And they mentioned on the MLB Network broadcast of them announcing the Hall of Fame inductees that Beltré, sort of a late bloomer in a sense, he didn't make his first All-Star game until he was 31 years old. And that got me thinking, like, oh man, he didn't make the All-Star team in that 2004 season. So I went to go look, and in this day and age, he probably would have made it just because of all the replacements and everything that does end up happening. But I looked at just the third basemen that were picked ahead of him. Scott Rowland was named the starter for the National League. He had better numbers than Beltré, and then Mike Lowell was the other third baseman on the roster, and he had slightly better numbers than Beltré did at that point in the season. Beltré had a really big second half. If he would have had that second half in the first half, he might have been an all-star. But the other part of it, you look at that 2004 season, he hit 334 with an OPS of 1.017, 32 doubles, 200 hits, 48 home runs, 121 RBI, and finished second in MVP. So, if you're a younger fan or just, don't remember the years, you think, oh man, how did that year not win MVP? And then you remember back then Barry Bonds was on his tear through the big leagues, where he had a batting average of 362, an on-base percentage of 609, an OPS of 1.422, 45 homers, 101 RBI, 232 walks, a 609 on-base percentage. Like, that's ridiculous. However you feel about Barry Bonds, everybody feels different, but that's why Beltré didn't win MVP that year. So, back when we kind of remember that, Beltré left, and whatever the case is, he went on to the Mariners, had some decent years there, nothing groundbreaking, just pretty solid numbers over there. If anything, a little bit underwhelming just based on the fact of coming off that 2004 season. And then, like I said, when he went to the Rangers, really became a guy for the Rangers, became not just a guy for the Rangers, but a guy in MLB, one of the more fun players to watch. He had his antics with him and Elvis Andrus over the years, when Elvis Andrus wanted to touch his head, or they would, each pretend they're going to catch a pop-up when the other one was catching it. We have Adrián Beltré moving the on-deck circle and getting ejected. A lot of different things over the years, and he was a fun player to watch. We congratulate him. The Dodgers congratulated him on social media. And now we move on to 2025. Billy Wagner finished 5 votes short this season. Next season will be his last season on the ballot. I would imagine he would get it. This was Gary Sheffield's last year on the ballot. He finished with 69 or 63.9% of the votes, and short of the 75% he needed. I got to imagine he'll get in with the Veterans Committee. I think Gary Sheffield waited a little bit too long for the little press run that he made, kind of explaining his side of things. And also, I think, Adam Jones kind of pointed this out, got penalized for maybe not, being great with the old school media that does most of the voting for this stuff. But regardless, I think Sheffield will get in eventually, kind of like Fred McGriff did. So that's it. Next year, you got Ichiro on the ballot. You got CC Sabathia. You got Felix Hernandez. You'll have another year of all these guys that were already on the ballot. So we'll see what next year brings. That's it for Hall of Fame talk. Jeff gave his 4 bold predictions for the 2024 season when he had his solo episode. So I'm going to do my 4 bold predictions for the 2024 season coming up. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet guaranteed. You have 2 NFL games this Sunday that you can look forward to and put a bet on. And guess what? All you have to do is bet $5 and you'll get $150 in bonus bets. That's very simple. I don't know what you're waiting for. Go check it out right now. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and look at the app, because the app's easy to use. There's different ways to bet. That $150 in bonus bets can go a long way with same game parlays. You can make your own parlay with different games. You can do over-unders. You can do props. You can do different things. You can look at things. They have an explore tab. You can look at bets other people are making. There's a lot of things to do in the FanDuel app, so go check it out right now. And remember, you place a $5 bet, you get 150 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, and listen every day to become an everydayer. Also, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Podcast Network has two 24/7 streaming channels that might be of interest to you. Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles are both on YouTube, streaming 24/7 with all the news and stories from around the sports world and around the LA sports world. So make sure to go subscribe and check those out. And now we go into bold predictions. As Jeff mentioned in his episode, if you haven't watched, we looked at our bold predictions from last year. One of my bold predictions was that the Dodgers would have a rookie in the All-Star game. That didn't happen. Miguel Vargas didn't get the start to the season, the start to his career that some of us thought he might. James Outman did have a great start to his season, but then had a really bad second month and was never really close to being there in the All-Star voting. And then I also made a prediction that the Dodgers would have more than 10 walk-off wins, with my justification being that their team might not have been as good as years past. My thinking was that their starting pitching wasn't going to be as strong, but their bullpen would be as strong. So if the bullpen kept them in games, the Dodgers could, come back late and win some of those games. They did have 7 walk-offs, but not quite, the walk-off boom that I thought they were going to have. So now we're going to have 4 bold predictions. And, we'll look in a year from now. Hopefully it won't matter, because the Dodgers will have been World Series champions, and, we're still riding off that high. But we can always look back and see. So the first one I have, and, bold predictions are tough because you don't want to go pie in the sky. Bold to me is realistic predictions that are unlikely or not as likely as other things to happen. And that's kind of the theme I'm going with. So the first one I have is that Bobby Miller will receive more Cy Young votes than any other pitcher on the Dodgers. Again, if some of you are as high as on Bobby Miller as maybe, obviously that I am, this might not be that bold of a prediction, especially with Yamamoto and the uncertainty, even though he has the stuff and everything that we know, at least in terms of the data shows that he'll be able to be successful in the major leagues. Still an unknown. Tyler Glass now has the stuff to win a Cy Young, but has yet to put together a full season, has yet to be healthy a full season in order to kind of realize that. So for me, for Bobby Miller, it's one of those where I think obviously the gloves are off for him as a pitcher. He made 24 starts for the Dodgers last season and got better as the season went on. And for me, or 22 starts for the Dodgers last season, and figured his way out through a season, and had some of his best starts to end the season. And I think there's a couple things for me that stood out for Bobby Miller that make him a little bit more of a sure thing in the sense of being a legitimate starting pitcher in the big leagues than others. I think the one flaw, or not, maybe not, oh yeah, flaw could be the word. The one thing he didn't do last year that I thought he might do more is have strikeouts. He had less strikeouts in innings pitched. He wasn't really known to be a strikeout pitcher, but I think that's the next step that he's going to take coming into this season that really elevates him and gets him Cy Young consideration. Last year, he was very good in the sense of his stuff. You take a look at his baseball savant page and, pitching run value, fastball run value, off-speed run value, expected ERA, his fastball velocity, walk percentage, barrel percentage, ground ball percentage, and extension, all in the 78th percentile or higher. All some of those, up in the 87th percentile. And the part of it for me is that he was a pretty balanced pitcher in the sense of commanding all his pitches. He threw his four-seam fastball 28% of the time, his sinker 20% of the time, curveball 19% of the time, slider 17% of the time, changeup 16% of the time. Like, that's 5 pitches that he threw at least 16% of the time. And I think he's gonna have to, or maybe already has started this, where you cut down on usage of maybe a couple of them and really try to, or maybe not cut down on usage, but maybe in this offseason focused on 3 of those pitches being elite and then maybe the other 2 pitches being average to slightly above average. I don't think this fast, this early, you're going to have 5 elite pitches. I think you can get to 3 elite pitches and you can have the other 2 kind of there. And I think one part for him where he stood out was there was days where he didn't have certain pitches, and that's when, he was able to sit back and use the other pitches. And I think that's still going to be there, even if he focuses on 3 of those pitches, because he can always come back to, I don't think he's going to get worse at those pitches. At the very least, he'll stay pretty stagnant, depending on which pitches he goes after. I think the other part for me last year is that his home and road splits were pretty similar. He actually was slightly better on the road than he was at home at Dodger Stadium. And for a young pitcher to have that split, just shows me that he has the stuff in order to neutralize any home field advantage or away field disadvantage that he may have. And like I said, he got better as the season went on. He had some of his best starts there toward the end of the season. Obviously, the start in the postseason wasn't quite there, and I think he will be looking for that redemption come October. But I think before we get to October, Bobby Miller is really going to stand out and really going to make a legitimate case, or if not a premier case, to be a Cy Young winner. So looking forward to watching Bobby Miller this season, and that's the bold prediction I have there. My next bold prediction is that the Dodgers will have at least 6 players with 30 home runs. And this one is a little bit more bold than the Bobby Miller one, because that's a lot of players and to have 30 plus home runs. You think about last year with the Braves, they had 5 players with 30 plus home runs. And I'm saying the Dodgers are going to one-up that. And I think the easy 2, obviously, are Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani. Freddie Freeman has hit 30-plus homers twice in his career, has yet to do it. He fell 1 short last season, so I think he gets to it this season. So that's number 3. Max Muncy's basically become a lock for 30-plus home runs as a Dodger in his career so far, so that's 4. I think Teoscar Hernandez is going to have a big year for the Dodgers and definitely going to get to that 30 home run, so that's 5. So this is where I think 5 would have been a not as bold prediction. I think 6 is where the bold part comes in, and you're looking at one of Will Smith or James Outman to really have that not breakout season, but breakout power season. Outman hit 23 last year. Will Smith has topped out in the 20s. I think, Will Smith probably would have got closer, if not to 30 home runs, had he not had, all those issues, missing time, and then having the injury that he didn't talk about until after the season. I think, especially him coming up, it's not a contract year for Will Smith, but, he might want to show the Dodgers, hey, do you want to offer me an extension? Look how good I am. I think that could help out. James Outman can go one of 2 ways, I think, this season. He's either going to hit for more power, but maybe lose a little bit in the sense of average, or he's going to hit for more average, but drop a little bit in power. I think one of those 2 guys can get to 30, and that'll give the Dodgers 6 players with 30 home runs, which would be ridiculous. And obviously, have them at the top of, if not the leader in the league for home runs total. You add in guys like Jason Hayward and Gavin Lux and everybody else that'll kind of fill in, and they'll get theirs here and there. But I think 6 players with 30 home runs would be pretty wild for the Dodgers. And realistically, I think 5 can happen rather easily, with Freddie Freeman being the tough one there. And I think the 6th one is a little bit tougher, but I can see it happening with health. So we'll see if that's what the Dodgers can do, if they can mash the baseball like that. But that's my bold prediction number 2. I have 2 more predictions coming up, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. We want to thank you for being an everydayer if you are. An everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every single day or as close to it as possible. You can do so by subscribing to Locked On Dodgers where we get podcasts and on YouTube. And remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider. All you got to do is go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. And you can join the text thread with us, get direct messaging to or direct texting to our thoughts to or any questions you may have. Anything you think with Dodgers, you can have it right there at the tip of your hands or at the tip of your fingertips, whatever they say these days. But that's locked on. That's joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. So let's get into the other bold predictions I have for the Dodgers. And I think that this next one is more of an exercising a demon, I guess, so to say. And I think the Dodgers will be the number 1 seed. I think they'll have the bye, and I think they'll sweep the NLDS. And, realistically, that's not a bold prediction on its face when you look at the Dodgers and who they could potentially play, being one of the wild card teams, being one of the wild card teams, even if they're a top, even if it's like a team like the Phillies, who might finish second to the Braves, or the Braves might finish second to something like that. I think the Dodgers will come in fully focused however they finish the season, however the season goes. And I think that they will sweep the NLDS easily. They'll go into the NLCS. I was going to say sweep their way to the World Series, but that was a little bit too bold for me. I wouldn't put it past them. I remember 2017, they swept the first round. They won the second one in 5 games, and then they were rolling. I think that kind of run is possible. I think it's one of those where guys will be locked in a different way. I think there'll be, different. Mookie and Freddie Freeman have kind of gotten some flack over the last 2 postseasons, not just production-wise, but just kind of, energy-wise. I think what we saw from Shohei Ohtani in the World Baseball Classic, not necessarily being, a crazy rah type leader, but we saw his speech in the pregame against Team USA in the championship, and kind of how he got the guys going with saying, you're not looking up to these guys today. You're on the same level as these guys, and go out and beat them, and something to that nature. And he had some big moments in that series against Mexico in the semifinal. They were down in the bottom of the 9th, and he hit a big double that inning. He didn't win the game for them, but he got them going. And then obviously, as we saw in the final, he came in and he pitched, and he got the last outs of the game, and striking out Mike Trout to end the game. So I think he'll bring a different level of leadership / hunger. Not that Mookie and Freddie and everybody haven't been hungry these last 2 years, but I think, having somebody as prominent a role as Ohtani is, never having been to the playoffs, definitely not having won a World Series yet, I think that's going to help. I think, having some of these other guys in different types of roles, having, guys that I think the clubhouse will be very closely knit and brought together. And I think that will lead them to big success in the NLDS and hopefully the entire postseason. And, that'll lead itself into this last bold prediction. And this one I kind of cycled through a few names, and it ends with the Dodgers winning the World Series, which is the boldest prediction because we don't know what's going to happen. We never know what's going to happen once we get to October. Even as fun as the Dodgers offseason has been, it could be just the opposite in October in terms of not being fun. But I think this is kind of bookending with Bobby Miller. Bobby Miller's a guy I've really liked since Dodgers drafted, and I was very looking forward to the success he had last season and continued success he's going to have. I think Walker Buehler will play a pivotal role in the clinching game of the World Series. I don't want to go as too far as him closing out the game because I still think he might be, needed for starts. But I think Walker Buehler is going to close out the series for the Dodgers. And he's a guy that we've talked about a lot on this podcast as being the postseason guy. He's been absolute nails. His first postseason start, he gave up the big home run to Ronald Acuna Jr., but ever since then, he's been pretty rock solid. He's led the Dodgers and been that ace for them in October in a few different ways. And in 2020, they had, Julio Diaz filled the role that he did in 2020 of kind of, starting, but also relieving. And I think Walker Buehler, depending how this season goes, if everybody's healthy and Yamamoto and Glasnow and Bobby Miller and Walker Buehler, obviously it's going to depend on where his stuff sits or how his stuff is playing or how his season goes. But if Walker Buehler is more of a, number 3, number 4 type guy, I think they could be more comfortable having him in that number 4 role where he's a little bit more of a swingman. Or, if the Dodgers he pitches a game 2 or 3 of a series, depending on, how the series go, he comes back and closes out a game 5 or 6, or hopefully not a game 7, but a game 5 or 6. And I think going to, no offense to any reliever the Dodgers have right now, definitely, they have a lot of capable relievers that could close out games for them. It's not like 2020 where Kenley Jansen was a little shaky and he had some big saves for them that postseason, but the games that we remember, the games that mattered, he wasn't on the mound to close out those games, the clinching games. And I think this year for the Dodgers, it's not like that. Evan Phillips, until proven otherwise, is a legitimate nasty closer that can close out games, and the Dodgers have no issues there. But I think, Walker Buehler is going to be that guy. And I hope it's not the way Walker Buehler goes out on his Dodger career in the sense of that he doesn't come back. But I think him having a strong season, him proving it again in October, him having a big moment in October will lead perfectly for him going into, the offseason when he'll be a free agent. So that's the bold prediction there. The boldest prediction, of course, is the Dodgers winning. But, and I said it on Twitter the other day when the Dodgers put out a picture of Bobby Miller and Walker Buehler working out at Dodger Stadium. And I said, I know the Dodgers had a big offseason. There's a lot to be excited about, but those two are near the top of the list for me in terms of seeing them. And I didn't want to put the redemption and the return. That's more of an October thing. I think Bobby Miller has some redemption to do once it gets to the postseason. I think obviously Walker Buehler, the return to the postseason after being that guy for the Dodgers for a few years. But that's kind of what I'm looking forward to is them being a part of the 2024 Dodgers winning a World Series, whether it's passing the torch from Buehler to Miller, whether it's Buehler's last way out, whatever the case is. And I think the other cliche answer I would have had here is Clayton Kershaw doing that, but I don't think Clayton Kershaw would be in a position to close out a game unless it was a blowout game, unless he comes back, from his injury and is looking like prime Clayton Kershaw, or at least good to prime Clayton Kershaw. But I think, in a close game, I don't know if the Dodgers would go to him again in that type of role, just based on what's happened, in 2019. So, but I do think Walker Buehler would be that guy that the Dodgers do that with, and I'm looking forward to that happening. So those are the bold predictions I have for the 2024 season. We'll look at them in a year and see what happens. But if all those things happen that I said, I'd be a pretty happy person. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Make sure to subscribe to make sure that you're notified when our episodes are up and ready. Remember, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles are two 24/7 streaming channels provided to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. They're on YouTube. They're on all day. Go check them out. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast with and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can text with us directly, and it should be fun once the season gets going. There'll be a lot of conversations going, especially once the games get going. So make sure to join that right now. And you can get a hold of us different ways. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Instagram's up and running again, so go check that out. We're also on TikTok, Locked On Dodgers, if you're into that. We can find Jeff on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM either of us for any questions, comments, or concerns. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.